on an empty road in the pouring rain, in the rearview mirror, flashing lights.
He introduced himself as a volunteer fighter.
What happened next would change a family and an entire community forever.
We checked for a pulse, but
This is a special edition of WUSA 9, A Marine's Mysterious Death. And good evening, I'm Adam Longo. Tonight, we're focusing in on a young Marine who was posted here in D.C. for more than a year while he trained to be a member of the elite Presidential Guard, serving his country and his commander-in-chief at Camp David, the presidential retreat in northern Maryland. His name was Corporal Kyle Ferrell, and he was killed just a few miles away from his post. It's an unsolved mystery. The person responsible hasn't been caught. I went to the Maryland State Police Barracks to do some digging on this case, and they opened the books to me and my crew. Corporal Ferrell's family and friends still searching for answers and justice.
the weather was horrendous.
It was raining really hard.
You couldn't see anything that night.
He introduced himself as a volunteer fighter.
In the heavy rain, Michael Crone started having problems with his car. He pulled over onto the shoulder and called for a tow truck.
See somebody on the side of the road, you know, Mama, we need to stop and help them. And it'd be like, according to where we are, I'm like, I don't know if that's a very good idea. Yeah, oh, come on, we'll be fine. You always want to stop and help somebody,
That yearning to help is what drew Marine Corporal Kyle Ferrell to the shoulder of Route 15, just south of Thurmont, Maryland.
He had the big, huge lights in the back. In fact, he had the big front lights, and I thought at first he was the tow truck. And he said, you know, let me go back and get a raincoat. So I see this thing go by. There was also kind of a noise, and you know, it's all at the same time, like a whoom.
His door was completely torn off, the driver's side door.
We could see a body on the road.
You felt like you needed to help.
Yes.
Right after that, I could actually see Corporal Ferrell. He was right outside my window, like right about, you know, there in the traffic.
We need assistance, like, you know, and it was just taking forever, and like, what do we do at this point?
He was not responding in any way whatsoever.
We checked for a pulse, but
I know I will see him again. It won't be on earth, it'll be in heaven. And I look forward to that.
In Kyle's hometown of Carthage, North Carolina, there was no doubt service to others was Kyle's calling.
I first met Kyle when he was about 8 years old. I was the T-ball coach. I knew at an early age that he was going to be supportive of the community.
He joined the fire department when he was 16.
He was there side by side with me, going inside a burning building.
He's always told me when we were growing up, he said, I wanted to be in law enforcement.
He'll see a car on the side of the road, you know, with the four-way flashers on, and he'll just look at his friend and just like, hey, I'm gonna stop and render my assistance.
When he took leave time from Camp David, Kyle often made the long drive home. He did ride-alongs with the County Sheriff's Office patrol unit.
We would go on calls together, and after we cleared a call, of course, we would talk about the calls. He was at an early age of wanting to know everything he could know before he got on the road.
And all he wanted to do was come home and join Carthage Police Department and, you know, finish his life here. He wanted to come back home.
He wanted more emergency lights in his vehicle so that when he was stopped on the side of the road, people can see that he is stopped.
He had had some close calls and said, Kyle, man, just please be careful. It didn't slow him down a bit, though. He wanted to continue helping people.
He just came to me and was like, hey, man, I need some more lights. Gotcha, man.
I pulled out in front of somebody and got into a car accident. And after we called 911, here come this black truck in with his lights on, and it was Kyle.
A few months before Kyle's death, Sandra Forrest was in Thurmont, involved in an accident of her own.
He was so cute and just so nice, and he just came in there and helped. Just pulled over to help.
To say that he was a good person would be not saying enough. The boy, he never met anybody that he didn't want to help. He wanted to help anyone he could as much as he could.
If Corporal Ferrell hadn't pulled over, it's quite likely I would have been just sitting in the car like this, and it would have been my car that got hit, you know, and so I probably would have died if that had, you know, if he had not pulled over. It's just a random chance thing.
The only reason why he was there was to help somebody else. And he ended up getting hit and killed, and then ultimately the person who did it drove off.
One of the most frustrating parts about this for Kyle's family and for the troopers investigating the case is that there's no clear picture of what the suspect vehicle looked like exactly. You know, the witnesses all agree that it was some sort of heavy-duty pickup truck hauling a flatbed with 1 or 2 cars on it, but it was extremely dark and it was raining like crazy. After the accident, the truck driver stopped way down here, about 500 feet away, but it was too far away for anyone to see the license plate, the driver themselves, or even the color of that vehicle. And then it drove away. So as we look at the photos, your recollection of being on the scene, you know, what stands out to you, the damage to the vehicle?
There's no movement to Corporal Ferrell's truck. I mean, where he parked is where his truck remains.
He had his door open?
Yes, he did.
Is it fair to say he just never saw it coming?
Yeah, I think he was, at the time he was reaching for his jacket. He might have retrieved it at that time, and then as he was coming out, he was struck. Probably never saw it coming.
Sergeant Michael Taluski is an accident reconstruction specialist with the Maryland State Police. He was there the night of Kyle's accident, and there was evidence found right where the suspect vehicle had pulled over. Pretty big piece?
Yeah, it was probably a 3.5 foot piece of metal. So a substantial piece of the vehicle was embedded in there.
So it just took a chunk of Kyle's vehicle, pulled it out of his trailer, threw it into the grass or into the woods,
yep,
and then took off.
And then drove off.
So there were only 2 witnesses to the accident, really, and neither of them really saw anything.
No, they didn't.
It was only later that other people that had stopped for the accident told me that he had left, because initially he pulled off. You still couldn't really make out the vehicle very well. I mean, it was, I'm not sure how far that is, but it might be a quarter mile or something, you know, and it was in the dark. Sergeant
Taluski believes it was the car trailer being towed that hit Kyle and his truck, something that may have looked like this. He noted no paint was scratched off the suspect vehicle and transferred onto Kyle's truck.
So the trailer wouldn't have been damaged that much. So there's really nothing to fix.
Scraped up? Like
yeah, so there's really nothing to fix. There's really nothing to, you know, there's no way, you know, nothing to turn into an insurance company.
And perhaps then, only one person who knows the whole story of what happened.
I made a bunch of stickers that go on the side of our helmets. And I mean, every time I put that on there, he's on our mind and everything, and he's looking over us.
I want to do something to just keep his name alive. Something to when somebody sees it, somebody to ask a question. You know, who was he? And so I wanted to do this for him.
Is it hard for you to drive that stretch of road every day? Does it bring back the memory every day?
It does, and you put your hand over your heart when you pass his sign.
How could you drive away and leave my baby laying there?
Come to even and give his family and friends the peace of mind as far as who did this.
How could you not at least tell us you're sorry?
It's got to be digging at him, you know, and it would just be easier to turn yourself in.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Ask for our forgiveness, you know.
Nothing's going to bring him back, but to bring closure not only to the friends, but ultimately to the family.
He was going to be a great police officer.
There's a lot of good memories.
He just came across as this great guy that just pulled in.
So every time I see a vehicle on the side of the road, I hear his voice telling me to make sure they're okay.
And this guardian angel that came to help.
Kyle's case has gone unsolved now for 764 days, 0 hours, 41 minutes, 7 seconds and counting. Maryland State Police has exhausted all the leads they followed in this case. They're at a dead end at this point. Now, where the accident happened, just south of Thurmont, Maryland, right here along Route 15. And this road, Route 15, it stretches for almost 800 miles to the north to Painted Post, New York, to the south to Walterboro, South Carolina. That suspect could be anywhere. Between the family and Metro Crime Stoppers, there's a sizable reward for information that could get troopers on the right track. You can stay anonymous, and here's the number: 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. That'll be on my Facebook page, Adam Longo TV, and on our WUSA 9 app. So who could do something like this? What kind of person could be cold enough to just drive away while a young man lay dying on the road? When I posed that question to Maryland State Police, the answer wasn't quite what I expected.
He knew he struck something. He would have certainly felt it. There wasn't enough damage to disable his truck or his trailer, because obviously he was able to drive off. He pulls over north of where the accident happened. You know, the witnesses say they see him pull over. They pull over to tend to Corporal Ferrell, and you know, he looks back. It's extremely dark in that area at that time of night, so he would have looked back, not, you know, seen maybe some cars in the roadway, but not, you know, not anything, you know, that was out of place.
You think maybe he didn't even know that he hit somebody?
No, exactly. He knows that he was in an accident, but whether or not he knew that, it's very possible they didn't know. And so, you know,
because he couldn't see it when he was looking back.
Yeah, and we understand that accidents happen. And so if the person's out there and, you know, they happen to see this, we understand that accidents happen. What we're trying to do is get closure for the family, get some sort of resolution for them, and give this person the opportunity to get this off their chests.
Conditions were bad that night, and the witness who was closest to the accident, Michael Crone, he weighs in on what that suspect might have seen. Just from the darkness, the headlights, the rain,
but
he knows he hit something,
right.
He or she. They know they hit something, but are they far enough ahead that if they got out the vehicle and looked back, tractor trailers blocking the road, your car's on the side of the road, do you think that they would have been able to see somebody laying in the road?
I don't think so. No, I don't think if they looked back from where they were, they wouldn't know that there's somebody in the road.
Here's the accident report. It's 110 pages long. Included in this information, the investigative details, like a thorough search for surveillance video that may have captured the suspect vehicle, a PennDOT camera on Route 15 that would have given troopers the money shot, but it was out of service that night. But there is this inside. 2 law enforcement officers remember passing a dually-style pickup truck that was hauling a car carrier. They saw it just across the border from Maryland in Pennsylvania, about 10 minutes away from the accident scene. A Frederick City police officer remembered seeing a white Dodge dually-style pickup hauling a black car trailer with cars on it pulled over on the shoulder. It would have looked similar to this. Now, the officer remembered that truck having Maryland War of 1812 plates, but there was no reason to suspect the vehicle. And to tell you the truth, it could have absolutely nothing to do with the case. There was a second witness to the accident who I wasn't able to speak with. He's a long-haul truck driver who saw the accident, albeit from a distance. So let me set up for you exactly what he saw. He remembers being in the right lane. So this is where the accident happened on Route 15. This is 15 headed northbound towards Pennsylvania. So that semi-driver was in the right lane. He remembers getting passed by the suspect vehicle on the left, which wasn't that memorable to him. But as the suspect vehicle was merging back in front of him, that vehicle continued its merge. And that's when it moved over and hit Kyle's car. The semi-driver came upon the scene and then used his truck to block the road completely to prevent any cars from hitting Kyle as they came through. Investigators here are facing some monumental challenges. What could they piece together with a stunning lack of evidence? and what the suspect may have been doing the day after the accident, how their behavior may have been different. A retired FBI profiler is lending his expertise to this cold case. That's next on this special edition of WUSA 9, a Marine's mysterious death. We wanted to dig a lot deeper into some of the aspects of this case, the investigative details, the behavioral details. And with us tonight to get into those details, retired FBI agent and profiler after having spent 25 years with the Bureau, Greg McCrary is here with us. And we want to be clear with folks, Greg, you were not involved in the investigation of this case.
That's correct.
The FBI itself was involved, but you personally were not. So we just want to set that clear for folks out there who are wondering about it. So the accident report is lengthy. It goes into a lot of details, but there wasn't a lot of physical evidence left behind at the scene. Case in point number one, Maryland State Police tell me that there wasn't any paint transferred from the offending vehicle, the suspect vehicle, to Kyle Ferrell's truck. What does that tell us, and what direction could that lead us in?
Well, it might go to the type of vehicle or that struck his car that would not have paint. But we have to keep in mind also that probably paint from his car got onto the vehicle that struck his car. So there would be no paint transfer that was mutual, but it could be one side from Kyle's car onto that particular vehicle or trailer. We believe it is.
And why is that important? Why would that be a good piece of evidence?
Well, it could be because people could be aware of that, that has been at least potentially damaged, or at least having the paint of that car on the side of that trailer, which may mean it had to be fixed or it had to be touched up or something would have had to have happened.
For better or for worse, I watch a lot of crime shows, a lot of these CSI shows. We know from the piece that the suspect vehicle had a large chunk of Kyle's vehicle stuck in the trailer. And we know that the suspect got out, looked at the damage to their trailer, pulled that chunk of Kyle's truck out and tossed it into the grass, onto the shoulder there on Route 15. So I'm thinking, hey, we've got fingerprints that we could potentially match up to somebody, but it's not that easy.
No, it's not the we call the CSI effect. Everybody thinks there's going to always be this great forensic trace evidence, fingerprints, DNA. Those are the exceptions, not the rule in these cases.
Now why? Why is that? I know it was raining that night. Does that degrade whatever evidence?
Certainly it can. And fingerprints, the person has to have enough oil on the finger to leave it. It has to be the correct sort of surface to leave it on. And so there are a number of variables that go into that. And a lot of times you just get smudges and smears rather than a really discernible latent print.
One aspect of this case where the FBI was involved, I'm told by authorities with the Maryland State Police, is combing through the voluminous cell phone data from towers in the area of the accident. Not a lot of people up there, so not that many cars are traveling through that area compared to around here, the Beltway. What can be gleaned from that information? And there comes a point where you have to get a warrant to try to find out more.
That's correct. You could get the raw data from the cell phone. In other words, which phones are pinging off a given tower, and who that might be, and who might be in the area would be leads. But to dig down any deeper, you really need to have probable cause to believe, rights of privacy and all that before they could begin pulling a lot of underlying data.
We're going to get into some more of the behavioral components of this, your specialty, profiling, when we come right back with our WUSA 9 special. Everyone here at the fire station felt strongly enough about Kyle that even though he was a junior firefighter, you guys wanted to honor him here.
Correct.
At the fire station. Why?
I mean, the way the person that Kyle was, I mean, we weren't going to just let it go. We want something here to always remember him being here. I mean, with this being here, even with visitors that come in, they can see this and then they can ask the questions as far as, well, tell us a story about Kyle.
We're back with retired FBI agent and profiler Greg McCrary here talking about Kyle's case. You spent the bulk of your 25 years in the FBI as a profiler. So the number one question that I've asked myself and I've asked others throughout the course of investigating this story is what kind of person drives away from a hit-and-run accident?
Yeah. I think two things to keep in mind. This is different than, say, an intentional criminal event. In other words, a lot of times we deal with career criminals who are very cold and psychopathic and lack guilt and empathy and remorse and those things. But chances are good that this is not that kind of an individual who was involved in this. It wasn't an intentional criminal act. So the chances are we're talking about someone who in the immediate aftermath of this may have been racked with some guilt or fear of being detected. Chances are their normal daily routine would have been disrupted. They might have missed work or showed up at work and been preoccupied and nervous about this. And their social relations could have been disrupted. I mean, their whole life would be really subsumed by this in the immediate aftermath.
Those are the cues that people around this individual want to look back on and say, something was funny around that time, and that could break the case.
That could be one of those leads, yeah. You could develop a suspect that way. And especially if we begin putting this together, someone who may have been a driving truck, who may be out there doing something that evening, may have mentioned something about needing to get a trailer looked at, or a car they were hauling accidentally slipped in the trailer and got damaged. Anything like that that begins to piece it together. So there are people out there who may have suspicions or actual knowledge.
Greg, what is the likelihood that this person, the suspect, if they were driving and traveling alone, that they did tell somebody about this afterwards? I mean, you've dealt over your career with a number of criminals. People talk.
Yes.
So is the likelihood that this person shared a little bit of knowledge with somebody else?
It's certainly likely that he said something. It wasn't an ordinary night for him. He may not have understood the entirety of what occurred, giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I say he, it's probably a male. But we don't want to rule that out totally either. May have realized they had an accident, certainly did. They stopped along the side of the road, check it out, and may have said something to somebody about an unusual event or something happened, or made up some story as to how they get the rig looked at, or they had a problem with a car that they were towing, and they got, any story like that they may have come up with in some even limited detail. And that's what people want to start thinking about and putting themselves back in that time at that time frame.
Valuable and insightful information from the man here, retired FBI agent and profiler Greg McCrae. Appreciate you coming on to talk to us about it. We hope that just that one small fact, that one small detail will be enough to jog somebody's memory.
You're welcome.
Kyle Ferrell served God, served his country, his community, his family. His mom remembers as a young boy, he and his friends used to light little fires in the yard, then get on their walkie-talkies, race out on a riding lawnmower, and pretend to be firefighters while putting out their mini inferno. At 21 years old, he was cruelly taken away for no reason, and we may never know why. If you're compelled to action, share this story from my Facebook page. Thank you to Donna Ferrell for letting us share the story of her only son.
The sheriff's department came and woke us about something like 2:30 in the morning and, broke that news.
We just need someone to talk to. He was there. He will stop what he was doing, and he'll be right there by your side.
Just to know how hard he worked, how well he was doing, all of that, just taken away.
Every time I see a car on the side of the road, don't matter if it's pouring down rain, I hear him in the back of my head and just make sure they're all right.
And some days now it's not real.
Even now?
No. No.